All right, so welcome to another episode of The Other Side of the Studio, where we talk about real life outside of the studio, outside of the doctor's office, that will help you find the way to become your own medicine. So it's all about health and well-being, and boy, are we needing it today. So today's guest, I am beyond excited and honored to have Lillian Fitz, who is navigating as a Gen Zer this space of this crazy world that we are living in, and really trying to seek the answers from, her position as a Gen Zer. So welcome, Lillian. I am so honored to have my daughter visiting as my guest today.
Welcome to the other side of the studio. Join us for authentic stories, expert insights, and a fresh perspective on wellness to guide you through the nuances of life's transitions, reminding you that every shift, every change is an opportunity for growth. Rooted in the timeless teachings of Pilates, we journey through the 7 pillars of a well-balanced life: spiritual, emotional, physical, sleep health, nutrition, relationships, and financial balance. Are you ready to embrace transitions and live a conscious, strong life? Hosted by speaker, author, retreat guide, and founder of Conscious Strong, Lillian McLaughlin.
Good to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for agreeing to come live with your opinions and your brilliant mind, because I love the conversations that we have. Many of them have been confrontational. Many of them have been debatable. That's why I adore those conversations, because you come at your position with a lot of passion. So welcome. We have talked about a lot of topics over our years, and one, no doubt, has been very forward, especially over the past, I would say, 6 years or even longer, is the topic of mental health. And I know that you have a very strong position and feeling and some experience with dealing with mental health.
Yeah, I mean, me and many people in my generation, it's just been a struggle, ever since I was, 12 or something. And then it just kind of has gotten worse, especially in high school. Mental health as a concept, it's kind of been out there for the past decade. And it bothers me that we're still oh, we need to talk about it more. We need to start having these conversations. But again, we have these conversations. I just don't think we're having the right conversations. I don't think that we're really addressing the issue.
I think your generation, Gen Zers or even millennials, are not taken seriously. Their views and values are not valued or heard. And I think that plays a huge role in, how we view mental health.
Yeah.
And, my generation, and these are exact words from you many years ago, is like, Mom, we can't just flip a switch. And I'm going, well, yes, you can. You can wake up and say, I'm happy. And you're going, absolutely not.
Nope.
That is ridiculous.
Well, first of all, I don't think this is new that, I think the older generations have always looked down on the younger generations and kind of want to tell them what to do. And when it comes to mental health, especially for, I guess, teenagers who are starting to feel these new complex feelings for the first time and having these new thoughts, a lot of adults just want to shut that down and say, well, you're a kid. What do you know? And, I mentioned this earlier about, I think a lot of people underestimate just how, middle schoolers, high schoolers, people in their early 20s, how much they really know and how much awareness they have, because thanks to the internet, we are exposed to so much, the good and the bad. We have, just a wealth of information at our fingertips. And so, we do know stuff, and, the feelings that we have, they are real and they don't need to be invalidated. And a lot of the solutions that, your generation or boomers like to prescribe, it doesn't, give room for any sort of nuance. But also, I don't think that we want to be like talked down to. We just want to be listened to and heard. I think that's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
No, I think
rambling.
it's prompting me to have emotions around that as well because, as a Gen Xer and then kind of really on the edge of the boomer two generations, not quite there, can't call myself a boomer, but it's that maybe there's a little bit of fear.
Mm.
And we know that fear evokes a lot of not pleasant, responses or effective communication styles because if we
Mhm.
approach communication from fear, then it's going to be all wrong. And I will admit, maybe it is that your generations with now, the internet and information immediately accessible, that I do feel like we may fear that more than we do now.
Mm.
But it has had you, and I've witnessed it, advance far more, than we had to do it by textbook. We had to do it old school way. We are not getting rid of the computers now or the internet. It's only like speeding forward. So the encyclopedias are gone.
Mhm.
They're obsolete except now online.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but it just made me think, our generation as parents who are navigating parenting and trying to have communication with our children has not been easy.
Yeah.
Not been easy. And I think a lot of it does come both sides from having some fear.
Mhm.
It's like maybe you do know more than I do. And oh my gosh.
Yeah. I don't think that younger people know more. Again, we just kind of like we're dealing with, a different set of tools, I
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
and, in a different environment. But yeah, we don't really know what those tools are all the time. Like I'm still figuring out like how, to regulate my emotions, and just how to deal with stuff. But yeah, I guess as I was saying earlier, adults kind of like to just be like, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." But,
Yeah.
there's no room for nuance. There's no room for really, understanding where we're coming from.
I mean, we do. It's like this way or the highway, or,
Mhm.
my father used to say, no ifs, ands, or buts. This is just how it is. You're going, but wait a minute, wait, this is how I feel. I remember having those feelings of going, but wait a minute, you don't understand me. So I know that we've had numerous conversations where you've said the same back, like you just don't understand, where I am. And
Mhm.
and you were right. I mean, it's like I can't put myself in your shoes just like you can't put yourself in my shoes and
Mhm.
how I experienced those years, which is just a human experience, right? With the internet and the exposure now, we are seeing so much more like unpleasant things than we were exposed to because of lack of, you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
'Cause, I think a lot of people don't, like, address their trauma until they're, like, well into adulthood. And so, but, like, again, by the time they're really kind of doing that inner work, they have more freedom. They have, financial independence. They kind of have a foundation, whereas, young people, they don't, you know, they're still controlled. They have to go to school. They have to live with their parents or whoever. They just don't have a lot of control over their lives, which can be really upsetting when when you're struggling inside and no one is really there to give you the support that you need.
I was reading an article earlier, and I didn't bring that one with me, but it was about Western Europe is probably a little bit more advanced in having these conversations in the home because in truth, everything starts in the home. And if the home is unstable, high likely chance that life outside of the home is going to be unstable, whether
Mhm.
it's school, whether it's relationships with peers or choosing the wrong friend groups. So now that I am hearing more of talk and openness about mental health,
Mhm.
it's very forward right now. But you and I were driving over here and having this conversation about do we feel that here in the US, here in North America, do we feel like we are, making progress to meet what other countries are now really bringing as the top, conversations that they're having in their homes, checking in with all family members, the kids, even the parents, and navigating through, a lot of post-pandemic. It's the transition that is very stressful and concerning and scary, and how it's affecting everyone in the home.
A lot of these countries, they have free access to healthcare. Education is just better. And so I think that and I think work environment as well is probably less toxic. Like places like Sweden, you get like 5 weeks off of paid vacation. And in here, you just like in this country, you just don't have those things. And so, the toxic work culture, I think, definitely impacts, mental health and why mental illness is just continuing to going up. And because, I just don't think that we're seen as like real people. We're just, people who just have to go out into the world and work and earn money. And that's kind of it.
I don't have the current stats on this, but, in raising you and my children, you're the youngest of 5, and seeing, your older sister's generation, which is the same, she's a millennial, but having her, right? Is she?
I
She's
think
a
she's
Gen.
Gen Z.
She's Gen Z
She's
as well.
98,
You're
which is
right.
like right
Yep,
on the
she's
cusp.
Gen Z as well. But I have never in my life, which saddened me, have heard of more suicides, and it makes me want to cry when I hear that these children are suffering and feeling that is the only option, is to not, is to take a life. And, your generation, I mean, your class or your group, I didn't hear as much, but with your sisters, it just was off the charts. And I thought, what
Mhm.
is going on, from the drug
Well,
use to,
she went through the public school system
sh-
and I didn't.
oh, there you
So
go.
that might be a
Okay.
difference there.
So education is definitely at its weakest, and we just were told that it is even going even further down, as I
Mhm.
think most of us know for paying attention, and it's very concerning. So, I agree. I feel like that is one factor, but again, home life, like, and it's like most homes are dual working homes where both parents are having to work, or it's a
Yeah,
single
they have
parent
to.
home. There are many single parent homes now, which is very difficult with the cost of raising a child
Mhm.
escalating because of all of, especially now with, the inflation and, post pandemic, we are seeing just, the cost of just groceries are just crazy insane.
Yeah.
So, any reflection on that? I'm sort of just kind of talking about topics that are coming forward, but why don't we jump to, just some of the reports that I pulled earlier, which this is around social causes.
Yeah.
But what's at the top and consistently across the top is mental health,
Mhm.
help, and care. And the concern that, as you mentioned, that, there are other countries and European countries where, healthcare is accessible. It's, we don't want to say free, but it is accessible
Mhm.
just through how they navigate, their system. And here we struggle. Many have said that they don't go get help because they can't afford it. I know that this is a little maybe ahead of your age group right now because you haven't fully experienced being out there. But share a little bit about that, because I know you express a lot about money concerns, which is going to be a whole nother topic, but the fear of money, right? And then how it's impacting the ability to go get the right care.
Sometimes it just feels like we're all set up to fail in a way. Like, college is super expensive now, and that's always been, like that should be the life path to success. You graduate really well with straight A's from high school, you go to a nice college, and then you get a nice job. But since, it's like a lot of people can't afford university, and even if you do get in, whether it's with scholarships or, families able to pay, you're not even guaranteed like a good job after that. So it's very disheartening, and, it kinda just feels hopeless sometimes. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's very frustrating, and, like, even middle class, upper middle class families still are still burdened by medical bills.
Mhm.
And no one should be burdened by medical bills. That's insane. And yeah, it's just when I hear about you talking about like all the kind of bills you have to pay, it's overwhelming. It's
Mhm.
really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's just, in the back of my head, I'm like, damn, like, am I ever going to just have time to relax or not worry about this? Or I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get
Yeah.
it. And we were having lunch just the other day and in my office building, and you wanted to know how much the new apartments are going for in your search for an apartment these days.
Yeah.
And you look it up, and it was just the disappointment that I saw. And you're going, oh my gosh, that is like for one bedroom, it's $1,600 a month.
Yeah. At
At
least.
least. And, that is here in our hometown in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And that's, daunting.
It just feels like struggle is
Yeah.
like inevitable
Yeah.
or like that it's necessary. And I just think I just don't agree with that. I just don't think people should have to struggle in order to get the life that they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because, I think what people want nowadays is just, to be able to afford groceries, to be able to buy a house, just
Yeah.
kind of basic things.
Yeah.
Of course, I guess that is privileged because not everyone can get those things, but,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think everyone should get those things,
Yeah.
especially in this country.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agreed. And, that's a whole nother
yeah.
topic that I feel like we could have so many conversations. You know the work I do, and we've had numerous conversations around health and well-being, navigating this mental health space and the challenges. And I know that I have always said, if you just move your body and
Mm,
if you find that's going to help, it's your best medicine, breath work and exercise, truly, it's proven, we know that.
mhm.
And I know that you've agreed, you can expand on that from your perspective. You've heard your mother and sharing, just if you get up and you exercise and you can turn this switch on.
As you know, I've been like working out a lot more,
Yeah.
and it does make you feel good. I'm not going to deny that. And there's empirical evidence to prove that, exercise is great physically and mentally. But I guess it's back to what I was saying earlier about, the younger generations, we don't want to be talked down to. And we want to just be listened to first, before you try and like give us advice, or whatever you think will solve our problems. We really just want to be heard.
Mhm.
I think that's, missing. We don't, just drink more water or, breathe this certain way or just like take a walk, like, or make your bed every morning. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it just like seems like the problems that we're dealing with are just, they're insignificant and, they're inconvenient and people just want to get rid of them and will be prescribed just kind of any advice.
I agree. And we've been down many, paths of working with therapists, all children,
Mhm.
having their moments of needing some support. And, talk therapy, you've heard me bash it. I don't need to fully bash it. I'm not saying I'm anti, traditional, therapy where it's the sitting on the sofa, but to me, there has to be some shift in that. And, I'm very big on having to move your body and having to move in order to shift through any crisis, whether
Yeah.
it is emotional or even if it's physical.
I just think we need it all. Like, we need
We
to
need it
talk
all.
about it.
Thank you.
But yeah, we do also need to know, like, just how to deal with it. We need to know the tools and the skills to, once we do have those conversations, okay, what now? How do we move forward? And, exercise, daily habits are the way to do it.
Mhm.
I just think, yeah, it's lacking in every aspect.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I was so pleased to pull some articles that are from Y Pulse. So grateful to discover the site because it's just filled with very helpful insight on what millennials and Gen Zers and, well, mainly those are the two generations right now that are able to really speak and put their views out.
Mhm.
but hearing how they're trying to make a change, and this one that is just like, what are Gen Zers doing for mental health? Like, what practices? And a lot of it was finding, exercise, but also finding the ability to meditate,
Mhm.
kind of welcoming, meditation and maybe those breathing exercises to help them. The next is like how Gen Z and millennials are redefining wellness. Now,
Mhm.
this one totally, like, I completely resonated with your generation because I'm going, yes, this is what, Conscious Strong and the mission that I have been building here with my mission. It was to redefine wellness, and I love seeing that Gen Zers are really working to make that difference too, and making it not so linear. Is that just as we were saying, it encompasses the whole of living.
Mhm. We've just been so dissatisfied with things for a long time. And, because I grew up and many of people like you who are just like, "Oh, well, flip the switch, just do this, just be happy." And we're just like, "Well, we can't." And so, yeah, I just think we're trying to find, our own way.
Where do you seek your, I'm going to call it, desire, like, knowledge? Like, what's your source? Like, is it YouTube? Is it Instagram?
I mean,
Where is your main source of information?
yeah, I mean, I go on YouTube a lot or just, you know, Googling stuff. Like if I have a question, then I'll just look that up and see whatever comes up. And then also just talking to people. But yeah, I would say mostly YouTube, Google, and
Yeah.
people. That's
Yeah.
kind of it.
Good old Dr.
Um,
Google, I know. Yeah, I get it. So, but what I'm seeing here is redefining wellness is looking at it from this whole perspective, which I found beautiful in terms of saying you don't have to just exercise.
mhm.
And that I love because I'm trying to take exercise out of the vocabulary. This is all movement. It is just, it's a lifestyle. It is being able to move and navigate without it being, oh, I have to go to the gym for an hour in order to feel satisfied
Yeah.
or happy or content. It sounds like your generation is really trying to seek just happiness and what feels
Yeah.
good. And we can look at the good and the bad of that, of, a quick fix and just wanting to feel good all the time.
Yeah, it's
And
a bit hedonistic, in my
exactly.
opinion. But
Yeah.
I don't think things were much better before by just, well, suck it up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That is a horrible way to live, in my opinion. But, just kind of doing whatever makes you feel good in the moment. Yeah, it's a quick fix. And I don't think it really can, like, address the real issue at hand sometimes. And I think with social media, especially, like you mentioned the word holistic, but I just don't agree with that. I think it's way too superficial, our approach to everything nowadays, including wellness. I like that we are starting to change, but I just think we're very lost.
Well, I agree. I feel like we have seen the pendulum shift way over and we're
Mm.
seeing it quite loud. And I think
Mhm.
this is where we have this opportunity to start to have these conversations. And so that we don't see it swing way back over to where, it causes more disruption. Again, we can't avoid that, but we can catch it as it's starting to make that shift back towards more of the center of that swing and shift so
Yeah.
that we can make a difference. The next article that I found extremely like, wow, was that why young people think wellness culture is toxic. And I just found this very fascinating that 55% of 13 to 39-year-olds agree that current wellness culture is toxic and harmful. Is there any, like, do you have any, like, input on that? Like,
A lot of wellness. Well, it's just a commodity, isn't it? The solutions to a lot of our wellness issues, it's like, well, get this supplement, buy this app, or, just things that aren't really helpful and but they're like trendy. And again, they just like don't really address like the root of the issue. And so that's like my problem. And I think there is also like this only like one idea of wellness, that it has to like look this certain way, when it doesn't. Like wellness is completely up to you. Like it's a very individual thing. Because we all have different struggles and different problems, and the way we deal with them are ultimately going to be very different.
You hit something earlier that I really didn't complete my thought around that, and that's trauma.
Hmm.
And, as a human, we all experience trauma. And I think, my generation and older, it was a topic that was taboo. You don't talk about it. We're all supposed to look perfect, be perfect, put your smile on, walk out the door. I know that's how I was raised, is just, be quiet, walk out, smile, be pretty. And that doesn't work. We know that. We're seeing the effects of that. So I do see now it's the topic of trauma is definitely more forward. Techniques that can be used for trauma healing is like writing and expressive writing and and not just journaling for the sake of talking about how you spent your day or what food you ate, but it's truly being real and going into the root and the deep part of the emotions. And I do feel that that is key
Yeah.
in the health space, in the movement space, because if you're going into the gym, just to be on the surface here, if you're going into the gym and you've had a horrible day and you're already jacked up, I'm going to start bringing a little bit of the neuroscience in terms of cortisol uptake, where your cortisol is skyrocketing, you're in fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system is in charge, and then you go to the gym and you're just trying to run out the tension, you're actually doing more harm.
Mm.
So I think that that language and that research is now very forward, but let's bring it into your generation that is in essence saying the same, if I'm reading this right, in terms of this wellness culture is toxic, it's
Yeah.
not healthy. 68% of 13 to 39-year-olds agree that current wellness culture puts too much emphasis on perfection. And I think it's that perfection. Now we're seeing a little shift there in terms of the stress around that.
It's definitely so much on appearances instead of like actual introspection, which is like what we need. Because you're never going to heal from your trauma just by like doing CrossFit or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be real introspection, and it can't just be like, oh, well, if I look a certain way, like if I have the right body, if I, take the right brand of supplements or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
you're not really going to get anywhere with that.
You're not going, and trust me, ladies and gents, we'll talk to everybody out there, is that, yeah, you hit a certain age, and I'm sorry, life is just going to shift. I'm there, you hit, menopause in life is, I'm sorry, you're not going to have the Barbie figure.
It's just
It's
unrealistic.
unrealistic. And then when you hit that age where things shift, and that's just, it's beautiful to age gracefully, but we're not setting up your generation for that success because we have this emphasis on being picture perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then a whopping 89% of, again, 13 to 39-year-olds, they want the definition of wellness to change. And I think that that's powerful. I'm just hearing confusion. I'm hearing
Yeah.
confusion. I don't think, your generation, and I know many, in your generation, just because I have a lot of children and I'm exposed to being in your world, is that I don't think you really want that perfection piece. You don't want to really be that girl, but you feel like you have to be that girl, or you have to perform this particular way to, number one, please the older generation, because they're sitting there with their finger in your face saying, no, you have to do it like this.
Mhm.
And, or you're watching peers or the gossiping or all of the social media make you feel that, "Oh, I have to subscribe to this if I wanna step out into the world." But the main crux of this article, I was very pleased to see that it is all about really being in the moment, and that is key. It's not looking for that really quick fix and not doing things that are going to potentially harm you just for the feel-good sake, and we know what
Mhm.
that means. It's substances, misuse of substances that is not a good thing in terms of finding that feel good state. But what I am seeing in all generations, to be honest, is the desire to be outside, realizing like hiking. You, Miss, did part of the AT, the Appalachian Trail, which is
Yes.
very difficult, and you shocked me at how far you went on the AT alone, solo, all by yourself, and I was petrified as your parent, like, totally petrified, and it was the woman who was at the entrance that we had to go through that orientation before anybody can go hit
Yeah.
the AT that said, "Oh, don't worry, mom. She is about to meet her entire new family." Well, that was hard for me to hear too, but it gave me the sense of comfort. And then just seeing, again, this gets me all teary eyed. I'm so emotional, but just seeing every age group walking that trail. And I, had the privilege of walking the first day with you in, but then I had to walk back and I was literally crawling back. I was in so much pain going, "Oh my gosh, she's about to go out and tackle this." But I am seeing that shift where there's definitely more than what I was used to growing up of this desire to be outdoors and not fully escaping, but maybe escaping.
I think so.
You think so,
Yeah.
exactly, but, we know that nature is its own medicine and
Yeah.
has so many healing benefits. I've had the privilege of experiencing just as of late, I hiked the Grand Canyon, which we've talked about now doing together, and that I find so beautiful.
Going back to escapism, I mean, that's kind of the reason why I went out there in the first place is just, I didn't know what I want to do with my life. And I just figured, well, I can just spend some time in the woods. And that's what I did. Because, yeah, I didn't want to deal with a job or, you know, all like the stresses of daily life. And yeah, when I got out there, it was, of course, very, very difficult, like, especially physically, but mentally as well. It's because I am a homebody that was so out of my comfort zone. I never had done anything like that before. But, it was like overwhelming how kind people were out there. And yeah, it was all age groups, mostly older. Like most of the people I think were like retired. So like 50s and 60s. But yeah, everyone was just so friendly and kind because I think they were looking for the same exact thing. They wanted that kind of extreme form of escapism, just getting away from, you know, mundane responsibilities and just to connect with nature, connect with themselves and like-minded people. Um,
Yeah. And were you surprised at the number of people that would stop to have a conversation with you?
it overwhelmed me. It
Yeah.
was, yeah.
And it's beautiful because I just truly was shocked, and everyone was more, like, applauding you. I mean, it was like every turn when we ran into people, everyone would clap, and it was just like, "Wow, this is." I didn't wanna go back, to be honest with you, but,
Yeah.
like, I wanna do this.
No, I don't think I told you about this, but, like, the first night that I was there, I had met someone, and she kinda looked about my age, but she was, like, her early 30s, and she was telling me about, how she went to prison, how she went to, like, rehab, just, like, her whole life story and her struggles, and, like, I just met her, and I don't know her name, like, she never told me. I think there's an understanding that we're all some, like, we're kind of all in the same place, and we're looking for like-minded people, we're all there
Yeah.
for the same reason.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just stopping and having those kind of conversations were just so easy and effortless.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, and kind of bizarre, but yeah, it's
yeah.
nice.
So you're hitting something in terms of, getting out of the social platform space and moving out into nature, how it
Mhm.
can open up these conversations like she shared with you something so vulnerable but didn't even know you.
Yeah.
But that's necessary in order for us to see the shift in the right direction. As we were saying, the pendulum coming back.
Perhaps
Yeah.
it's because, like, institutions like school and, like, a workplace, like, there is a hierarchy. But I guess when you're just, like, out in nature or,
Yeah.
just doing a hobby, that, yeah, it's really easy to connect with people without, fear of judgment or anything like that.
Were you ever afraid? Like, did you have moments where you
No,
just
and I don't know if that's because, like, I was, like, dumb or naive or something, but I always felt safe. You know, I did have my pepper spray with me and never had to use it, thankfully, but yeah, I think it was just, like, as long as you stay vigilant, then everything's fine, and again, everyone's so kind and helpful
Yeah,
that yeah, like, there's people called, like, trail angels who they don't hike the trail, but they'll just, like, kinda show up, and they'll hand out, like, food or supplies to through
love it.
hikers, just to help them out, so that's, just the kind of people who you find, and
I'm with you. This year, just very recently, I did hike the Grand Canyon. It was probably the most life-changing experience, hands
mhm.
down. I can't talk too much about it yet because
What is it, 20 miles?
I don't
22
think I
miles?
yeah, it's like 22 miles, and I did it in one day, and
Damn.
for me, I don't recommend doing that, and stop and enjoy the scenery and not feel like you have to, like, prove that you can do in a day, but I am so grateful for that day and that experience, especially with the group I had, but it's exactly what you're saying in terms of what you experienced. The people that you meet, and everyone is just so kind, and everyone is so willing to help. It was a pain journey for me, physical, and I'm going to say now even emotional. I had no idea. It came out of nowhere, but physically I literally was crawling for half of that experience. And the people that would come and want to help, the people that would want to come and say, "Give me your pack. I'm going to help you get that. Let me fix your water, Lauren." And I wasn't the only one, so it wasn't as if I was when I was with a group, but, just, we this conversation around our hiking experiences, we weren't
Mhm.
really planning on, it just kind of came
Yeah.
organically now. But I love the fact that we are bringing it up because being out in nature is one of the safest places for you to process trauma
Yeah.
or like dealing with, some feelings that are not comfortable, but being able to be outside and not confined to, the four walls, sitting on a sofa, trying to talk it through, it just
Yeah.
doesn't work. So it's going back to the notion of that we have to keep moving our body. I was going to say system, but we do have to keep moving our body, which is a system, in order for it to process some of these really heavy emotions.
Yeah.
And nothing, better than to be outdoors where you feel safe. This is kind of going backwards now because this topic of that girl and being a Gen Xer, I was like, well, who is that girl? Is it it? Mrs. It? And you're going, "Mom, it's not a real person. It is that girl that everybody aspires to be, and she's
Yeah.
perfect.
It's an ideal.
It's an ideal. She wakes up at 5, she works out, she puts her makeup on, she goes out and she looks perfect, she does the workout." Being in the Pilates space and a, master instructor for 20 years, I this is like hit a strong chord with me in terms of that girl is not allowed in the studio. It's like,
Mm.
no, don't come do an Instagram shot just to say you've done Pilates or any type of movement because it is giving that false, you know, interpretation of what even wellness should be.
Mhm.
In wrapping up here, we've covered a lot of topics that have been a little all over the world.
Yeah.
So, in how to summarize what we are bringing forward here today is, well, number one, get outdoors, right?
Yeah. Touch
Just
grass.
touch grass. Yeah, go lay down. You used to walk barefoot. You were
Oh,
into
yeah.
that for a long time.
Earthing or whatever it's
Earthing.
called. I
Yeah,
don't know.
earthing, deep breathing. So, what would you say to any of your generation, your peers that are out there listening that may be tuning in? You've been through some really difficult times that I,
Mhm.
as a parent, had it was very hard to watch, my child suffer, and you were suffering. You had your dance experience that
Yeah.
created a lot of suffering.
I look at this and, like, just, like, the pictures of, like, thin, pretty women, and it's just like, "Oh, that reminds me of ballet and the kind of pressures that had." So it just feels, like, relevant to bring up.
Yeah.
Well, you brought it up first,
I
but
did bring it up. And so we are talking, your years of being a ballerina and a
mm,
beautiful ballerina at that.
thanks.
And you have shared many times that those years were very toxic,
Mhm.
especially the latter years, in terms of what you felt that your body image should look like.
I started when I was, like, 4, and I loved it, and I would say, like, until 4 until, like, 11 or 12, like, yeah, it was, like, my favorite thing. I wanted it to be a career, but then it kind of became this, like, obsession, and, I did it 7 days a week, and, it's like it started out as something that I loved and truly an outlet for me to express myself, but also just to get my body moving, which is as it should be. But then, as you get older, that kind of ballerina mold gets stricter and stricter, and, it just yeah, it makes you look at yourself, like, you just kind of z zone in on, like, every little flaw that you have because, you're just standing in front of a mirror, you know? "Oh, do I look good this way? Oh, am I fat or something?" There's very, very high standards in ballet because
Yeah.
you have to be, like, an athlete, but also kind of a model in a way. You need the strength, but you also need a certain look. And then there's also just, like, so much competition between you and the other girls. But it's never really talked it's like, really, like, girl catty kind of tension that's
Yeah.
super passive
Oh,
aggressive,
very
and
tough. Yeah.
when you're just, like, constantly in that environment, the way you internalize it is just so deep and, you know, as, like, irrational as it sounds, it's like, "Oh, if I couldn't get my leg high enough, or if I couldn't do more turns as, like, the other girls could, like, I would feel inadequate, like, as a dancer, but also, like, as a person." Just
Yeah.
because yeah, I just internalized that so, so deeply.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, then there was a lot of like the eating stuff and teachers like for like Thanksgiving or Christmas being like, "Oh, have fun, but don't eat too much." And we would have like an inside joke that, our favorite food was lemon water and gum. And like, there's
Oh,
kind of some truth to like every joke because that's what we would eat before our, performances, our recitals.
yeah.
There's just a lot of pressure, but, like, going back to this and, like, that girl, I think it's the same. It's like,
Mhm.
Pilates is great, it gets your body moving, and I'm sure it, like, has a lot of benefits, but when you have this, like, ideal, this mold that you have to, like, fit into, that's just when it becomes super toxic, and, you kind of lose yourself. And,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, looking at myself for me and the dancer that I wanted to be, but the dancer that I had to be. And yeah, that just really effed me up for a while. And, I'm still like
It
an ultra perfectionist.
Yeah.
And, that definitely came from dance and just having to be a perfectionist.
Yeah, yeah, and there was the dancer, her name again was the one that really was reshaping, you
You
know
talking about Misty Copeland?
Yes,
Yeah.
Misty Copeland was amazing and just how she was somewhat rebranding the ballerina
Yeah,
body.
because she had, like,
She
muscles,
had
like, she actually had
muscles.
muscles and, like, strength, which is
Yeah,
what you need, You can't be
exactly.
105 pounds
No.
and do that forever, like
Yeah, yeah, it's not
yeah,
sustainable.
that's why
Yeah.
most ballerinas retire, like, by the time they're 30, and that's, like, pushing it,
Yeah,
so
yeah, just a very unhealthy culture, but it is centered once again around this idea of being perfect. And I witnessed it. I
mhm,
went and chaperoned many dance weekends, with you and got and saw, just and girls are catty. Girls are, we are vicious, in how we judge other girls out of, again, going back to fear of just wanting to be able to do and perform,
mhm.
or outperform or not be behind. And that does create, again, very toxic environment. So we have talked about a lot today, and I'm grateful for you showing up and being vulnerable and
Yeah,
sharing your story from your perspective of living in the Gen Z world that is now, navigating this world and how to settle into a comfortable space. so that you can find comfort. Life is never fully perfect. That's just not realistic. And I think that's been our topic and theme today, is that down to wellness, down to having conversations, having, more open-minded conversations and wanting to be heard. I think
Mhm.
that we all are experiencing that in every generation. So all of you parents out there, trust me, I've been through, I think, almost every kind of situation, having been a mother of 5, and you're my youngest. We've been through a lot. I have navigated boys and girls, and I've seen and heard things that I never want to see and hear again. So, parents, I feel you. I do. But I was so grateful that Lillian agreed to come and have this conversation, to be the
Mhm.
first of, I hope, many that can help all of us start to come to
Yeah,
a
and
more effective. Yeah.
sorry, didn't mean to
No, no,
interrupt.
no.
But just like how, I've criticized the older generations for, you know, just not giving the best advice or just thinking that they know the best. I think that, millennials, Gen Zers, and the younger generations should also try and avoid thinking that we know everything, because we don't. This conversation is just still ongoing.
Like so many things here, especially in the States, in our Western way, is that we are so polarized in many areas. And I do still feel like there is
Or
this.
at least that's the way it's set up to be. I don't think it's as black and white as a lot of people think it is, or it's like
Yeah.
that polarized. I think that we can really relate to each other a lot, and we can have good conversations. Maybe it's just about like finding that language, um, you know, or
Yeah.
just finding that common ground
Yeah.
that's necessary.
Deep breathe, have hard conversations, do hard things, and then we can find some solution. But coming at it from fear is going to only create more tension and discord. What would be your lasting, comments?
I think we all need to listen. I don't think it's just the older people that need to listen to the young. It's, we just all need to listen to each other, because we're all really confused as hell at the moment and we're just figuring it out. It's like, because, at 22, I'm always like, well, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm just figuring stuff out. And, I'm hearing people in their 50s and 60s say the exact same
Still trying
thing
to
and being
figure it
like,
out.
hey, it's fine because I don't have it figured out either. So, you
Yeah.
know, I think we all just need to just take a step back, take a breath, and just, you know, try and
Yeah.
listen a bit more and be kinder to ourselves and others. That's it.
I love it. So, all of the listeners out there, I really hope that you will participate in the chat. Let us know what's going on in your home, what's going on in your work life, what's going on in your relationships with your, children or grandchildren, and share, because it does start with that awareness. It starts by having communication. It starts by being vulnerable and bringing it forward, because just like the friend that Lillian met on the Appalachian Trail, she shared something quite vulnerable and it hit you, and it's been it's a lasting memory for you, right? Because it's made a
Oh, she was
difference.
just so nonchalant about it. And again, she looked so young. Like, I thought she was like in her early 20s.
Yeah.
So when she said that she was like a 30-year-old former like heroin addict, I was like, damn, you look good.
Yeah.
You look good. It just,
Yeah.
took me back. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, do share. We would love to hear from you. And we just thank all of the listeners for being here. And I thank you, Lillian, for being here. I love you. I adore you. And I'm just so impressed and proud
Mm.
of the woman that you've turned into. And thank you, honey.
Gee, thanks.
All
Love
right.
you.
Love you.